revive your business. And thank you for staying with us after that very quick break. And so let's now cross to Nairobi and have a look at how the Nairobi Stock Exchange was able to perform last Friday. Remember, the trades don't happen on the weekends, so we have the markets closed for Saturday and Sunday. And when you look at the Nairobi Stock Exchange, there was a much better performance on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. This is the biggest stock exchange in Africa, and currently they have a total market capitalization of over 2.06 trillion Kenyan shillings. Now, if you want to get a picture of what that looks like in Ugandan shillings, you have to multiply by 31 Ugandan shillings. That's exactly how much valuable the Nairobi Stock Exchange is. Currently, the exchange has over about 65 listed companies on the stock exchange and has been in existence since 1954, meaning it is the oldest and largest stock exchange in East Africa. And we cannot talk about stock markets and not talk about the Nairobi Stock Exchange. In aggregate, on Friday alone, over about 48 listed companies participated in trading. Now, this was a slight decline from the day before, which was about 50 listed companies that were able to participate in trading. And this is also indicated in the decline in the volume. They had about a 25% decline in the volume. However, their turnover increased by over 11% on Friday trading. And also the deals declined by about 8%. Now, a very stunning event here. The day ended with about 13 gainers and 27 losers on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. The gainers were led by Total Kenya, who came in at a 6.99% increase in price, closing the day with a price of 24.5 Kenyan shillings per share. He was followed by Trans Century, who also gained by 6.9% from the Nairobi Stock Exchange, and then Nairobi Business Ventures, who gained by 6.77%. East African Cables at 3.48% increase here. Really, we're looking at still the same stocks that have been also gaining and losing on the stock markets. However, on the losing side, Limuru Tea Company, who a couple of weeks back was very much a top gainer for several days in a row, declined in performance after losing over 10% on their price valuation. Now, let me tell you something about these maybe growing enterprises or young stocks. When you're trying to pick a share, of course, you ought to be balanced and you ought to diversify your portfolio. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. That is one rule I will always mention. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. But please and please be very careful when you're investing in the growing enterprises. These are companies that really, when you gain, it is a very big gain. They usually move in big percentages. Limuru Tea Company, just a few weeks back, gained by over 10%, yes, in price. And we're seeing that on Friday, last Friday, it lost still 10%. Meaning people who bought very quickly after the gain of 10% still made a loss of 10% afterwards. So that shows you how risky the growing enterprises are on the stock market. These young companies that are just starting, or the companies that are not the so-called blue chip they're not in the blue chip status yet, they are quite risky. And of course, when you're to gain, you gain crazy, but when you're to lose, it is still the same story. You will lose very big. Now, when you look at some other gainers, some other losers here after Limuru Tea, who came at the bottom, he was followed by Umeme Limited. Umeme was still a gainer a couple of days back before Friday. However, we are still seeing that on Friday, he lost about 7.44% of our price valuation there on the stock market. Then NCBA Group also lost 7.02%, and Flame Tree Group Holdings lost about 6.2%. Those were some of the significant losses that were made on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. But I want to still put this very clear. A company losing on the stock exchange, it doesn't mean that the company has lost maybe value, or the company is losing capital or losing clients. It is just that the company, the stock market did not play out in favor of that particular company at the end of the trading session. And so you must look at also that very, very important. Some people sending tweets saying that are these companies are profitable, these companies are still doing well. Well, that is not what happens on the stock market. It's a different story on the stock market. On the contrary, a company could be doing quite bad in the public, maybe carrying a very bad public image, and doing good on the stock market. Of course, that's a very rare incident there, but it can happen because the stock market entirely depends on very different factors from the usual markets that we have in the workplaces and as the companies carry out their day-to-day operations. When you look at the traded volumes and the top movers, of course, you can guess the top mover here, Safaricom. Safaricom led the top movers after trading about 13.5 million shares, and he was followed by NCBA Bank, who led also one amongst the movers at 5.37 million shares that were recorded on the trading day on Friday. Kenya Power and Lighting Company also had about 4.48 million shares, whereas KCB Group also had 1.15 million shares that were traded. Now let's look at Total Kenya, who led the gainers. Who is Total Kenya and what does Total Kenya do? And should you invest in Total Kenya? Now, Total Kenya is a company that is engaged in the sale of petroleum products. The company has mainly four business channels. The number one is the network channel, the general channel, and as well as the aviation channel and the export and bulk channel. The network channel includes the distribution of petroleum products, including petrol, fuel, diesel, and so on, through their service stations that are located within Kenya. The general trade channel provides or includes sale of a wide range of products to all sizes of industrial consumers. And the aviation channel comprises of the sale of turbine kerosene and aviation gasoline, that is petrol for the aviation industry, to local and international carriers that is in Nairobi. The exports and bulk channel comprises of the sale of, for example, when you look at the wide range of products, that is petroleum products, to the neighboring countries like Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and so on, and other industry players. The company Test Diagnostic Lubricants Laboratory in Nairobi averages about 50 tests over a day for their clients in the region. And in addition, the company runs quality control laboratories in Mombasa, which monitor the products of the lubricating oil blending plant. Basically, that's what Total Kenya is into, who was the top gainer on the stock exchange in Nairobi on Friday. Now, Total Kenya has been trading on the Nairobi Stock Exchange for some time, but currently is the 27th most valuable stock on the exchange, and has a total market capitalization of over 4.29 billion Kenyan shillings, which makes about 0.207% of the entire Nairobi Securities Exchange equity market. When you look at the graphical performance, it is quite a volatile stock, with prices varying very rapidly over the trading days recently. And they had the opening price, for example, on Friday as 23.7, but the day's lowest price was 22.25, and the day's highest price was 26. They traded about 25,200 shares. So in terms of volume, you can see there wasn't that much big volume compared to the big boys like Safaricom, NCBA, and the like. And they had about 14 deals under which these shares were traded. A gross turnover of 597,105 Kenyan shillings was registered on Friday trades. The earnings per share, meaning every shareholder gained a value of 4.35 Kenyan shillings, and the price to earnings ratio is 5.63 there on the stock market. Now they have about 175 million shares that are outstanding, and their market capitalization, as I mentioned, is about 4.29 billion Kenyan shillings. Now, after having gained on the stock market, that is last Friday on the 16th of September, at exactly 24.5 Kenyan shillings per share closing price, the company gained about 7% on that particular trading day. But Total Kenya began the year with a price of about 25 shillings and has since then lost about 2% of their price valuation, ranking them the 33rd on the Nairobi Stock Exchange in terms of year-to-date performance. Total Kenya is the 40th still most traded owned stock on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Within the last 3 months, they have had about 246,800 shares that have been traded on the counter. Now, within their last 10 days of trading, they had trading on the 16th, they had trading on the 14th, they had also trading on the 12th, on the 9th, on the 8th, meaning they have at least some frequency in as regards the daily trading that is registered on the company. Now, it has, of course, since it's a petroleum products specialized company, it is the only company of its nature that is listed, so it doesn't have competitors within the same sector on the exchange, and that is Total Kenya for you. Now, should you buy stock in Total? Definitely, if you are looking at long-term gain and also capital gain at the moment, yes, you can go ahead and buy stock. But I'm warning you, still, like I've always told you, the choice has to be dependent on you as an investor. If you're interested in petroleum as a sector, which you're thinking right now, the cost of petrol products like diesel, petrol, kerosene, and gasoline is falling, getting back to normal. So this might not be the best time to buy very big volumes in such petroleum distribution companies, as they are registering a slight decrease in their revenue. So you might have to also think twice about that particular incident. TransCentury Kenya was the second top gainer, and let's have a look at TransCentury Limited here and see how she performed. Now, this is a Kenyan-based company that is engaged in the power transport infrastructure as well as engineering industries across East Africa and Africa as a whole. The company is focusing its activities on 3 divisions, that is power, transport, and engineering. The Power Infrastructure Division is a manufacturer of electrical cable and transmission equipment in East, Central, and Southern parts of Africa, with a broad customer base that includes retail outlets and large and small electrical contractors, projects, and other utilities. When you look at their engineering division, on the other hand, the engineering division has mechanical and civil engineering and contracting firms in Central and East Africa as well. Now, in April 2014, Trans-Century Limited announced that its subsidiary Safari Rail Company had sold some of its stake, actually its entire stake, equaling about 34% in Rift Valley Railways, that is RVR, and the National Rail Operator of Kenya and Uganda, to Africa Railways, which is a subsidiary of Citadel Capital as well. So this is a little brief about Trans-Century. Regarding its performance on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, the company has a total capitalization of just 465 million Kenyan shillings on the stock market and is currently the 50th most valuable stock on the Nairobi Securities Exchange and constitutes about 0.023% of the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Yesterday, the company traded a total on Friday, the last day of trading. It traded about 700 shares in 3 deals, and that was about just 868 Kenyan shillings. So nothing really to get excited about, but rather on their year-to-date performance counter, we are seeing that they have gained about 5.98%, and they're the 19th in terms of year-to-date performance on the stock exchange here in Nairobi. And that's it from Trans-Century. And then we had Nairobi Business Ventures, who I'm not going to go into detail because of time, but we also have East African Cables, who was also among the top gainers. Now let's go to the losing side a little bit and look at the companies there that also lost on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Limuru Tea Company, like I said, is a small company that is also one of the companies that was driving the market crazy about a few weeks ago. Now, the company is a Kenyan company engaged in the growing of green tea leaves, and the company owns about 275 hectares of tea land situated 4 kilometers to the east of Limuru town. Now, the company is an outgrower to Unilever, that is Unilever Tea Kenya, which acts as the company's managing agent in the growing, manufacture, and sell as well as marketing of the tea. The company's tea estate green leaf is manufactured in the Unilever Tea Kenya Mabruki factory, from where it is sold mainly for export reasons. Now, the company has a total value of about, it has about 1.06 billion shillings, Kenyan shillings, in terms of market capitalization on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, and is the 44th most valuable on the Nairobi Stock Exchange out of the 65 listed companies there on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Well, there was no volumes that were traded on the stock, so the factors here that moved the price were entirely out of the demand and supply of the stock for this company as well. The company lost 10% after closing at 490 Kenyan shillings, and Limuru Tea, however, began the year with 320 shillings and has since gained about 37.8%, which is the best on the Nairobi Stock Exchange out of the 65 listed companies, meaning this is the best company in terms of year-to-date performance on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Investors should, however, take caution, and this is what I always want you to look out for when you're getting excited about a particular stock. The company has lost 12% of its value in terms of 4-week performance. In the last 4 weeks, the company has lost 12%, much as in terms of year-to-date, the company is at a 39% gain, 37.8% gain rather. So you look at the long term, but also the short term. So if you're coming into the market for capital gain, and your specific reason for coming into the market is for capital gain on a short term, this is not definitely something you would want to buy into after losing about 12% in a month. The company is the 56th most traded stock out of the 65 companies, still not the best you can get in terms of liquidity. So that is another thing that you should also look at when you're trading at Limuru Tea Company here on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. The company within the last 3 months has traded just about, which has traded about 8,100 shares, and that is on about 20 deals, and recorded a total turnover of 3.14 million Kenyan shillings that has been transacted on the stock that is listed on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. A volume high of just 2,900 within the last 3 months was recorded on the 21st of June within the same period of 3 months, meaning still care has to be taken when investing in a company like Limuru Tea Company. Wumeme on the other side, remember Wumeme is cross-listed on Nairobi Stock Exchange. Yesterday Wumeme lost some money on some value on its price, and Wumeme is currently the 19th most valuable stock on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, and currently has 11.7 billion Kenyan shillings worth of market capitalization, and that is listed on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. When you look at the volumes, there were about 800, which is a good kind of trading for a cross-listed company, at least from Uganda. And the shares outstanding currently are at 1.62 billion shares, and they're valued at 11.7 billion Kenyan shillings rather. The company, after closing the day at 7.22 Kenyan shillings on Friday, had lost 7.4 shillings, and that is from 7.8 shillings at the beginning of the day to 7.4 to 7.2 Kenyan shillings. However, Wumeme began the year with a 6.74 Kenyan shillings price, and has since then gained about 7.12% on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. That is in terms of value, and it is ranked the 17th in terms of year-to-date performance. However, the recent performance should give you some fear, because the company has still lost about 8% rather in the last 4 weeks. That is on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Interestingly, however, it provides good liquidity, as it is the 20th most traded on stock on the Nairobi Securities Exchange within the last 3 or 4 months on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. And within this period, it has traded a total volume of over 2.78 million shares, and these have also averaged about 44,073 shares per trading session. And just like here in Uganda, it has a good turnover. You can see the company trading good volumes as well as with good turnover within the last 1 quarter or so. And so, yeah, you can still invest in Wumeme, but I would rather you invest in Wumeme back here at the Uganda Securities Exchange rather than in Nairobi. That is if you're Ugandan. But if you are in Nairobi, definitely Nairobi Securities Exchange will offer you a very good deal there on the Umeme stock. That is it from the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Regarding the index performance, that's the average performance, there was a slight decline that was registered of about 1.84 points, and that was a 1.37% daily decline in the points. And when you look at other remarkable indices like the NSE 20 and the NSE 25, they all declined there on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. You can find more at www.smart24tv.com, or you can visit these particular exchanges on their websites and get to know more about their listing and how you can get to participate in the trade. We'll be right back. Stay with us after this quick break.